You the pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Terry, did you do the correspondence?
Certainly. Correspondence for this month received from a resident to Officer Detective Tim May. Thank you for protecting myself and son during a dangerous situation. This occurred during the department's response to an armed robbery. Received from an out-of-town resident to Animal Control Officer Rudowitz. An extraordinary act of kindness to 2 senior citizens sent to your city. Provided direction and had lost senior citizens follow him to their destination. Received from a promise to Jordan, to SRO Cushman and the department. Thank you for assisting at the event at the high school. It was clear the students were engaged and learned a lot. Received from the public defender, GA 13, to Sergeant Lassard and Officer Cruz. Complimented Officer Cruz and Sergeant Lassard on their actions during an arrest. The officers allowed a homeless subject to shower before a court appearance and provided him with clean clothes. Public defender was impressed and stated they do not see that kind of compassion very often. Received from Lisa Clark, McLean Vice President, to Lieutenant Siffel and Lieutenant Sheehan. Thank you for participating in an emergency drill. Your participation was valuable and your input was appreciated. It's the end of the correspondence.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of November 13th.
So moved.
Anyone have any changes? Hearing none. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the November 13th regular meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain because I'm not here, Jim.
Okay. You got the approval of the minutes of November 25th meeting, special meeting. Is there a motion, or anyone have any additions, deletions, changes? Hearing none, can I hear a motion to?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, public audience. Is there any public audience? Hearing none?
Public, raise your hand.
Don't, do you have something?
I would like to address the citizen complaint.
Would you please stand up and state your name and address?
Hi, my name is Patricia Snedeker. I've been
Patricia, could you spell that for me, please?
Patricia, you want to spell it or
No,
Snedeker?
last name.
Snedeker, Snediker.
Thank you.
I've been a resident of the town of Simsbury for over 50 years. I reside at number 91 Stratton Forest Way. Want me to stay standing? I'm sure,
You can sit to do it, you don't have to be standing up.
I'm sure we're all very familiar with the 911 call gone wrong. I'd like to read my complaint into record. I'd like to have my husband do that for me.
Excuse me, may I have your name?
Kirk, K-I-R-K, Thornton, T-H-O-R-N-T-O-N.
Thank you.
On the morning of June 2nd, 2019, at the home of the Grahams, an emergency 911 call was made on behalf of my sister, Karen Graham, by Kirk Thornton, me, my husband and brother-in-law to Karen. Kirk told the police about the emergency. He made it clear that we were all very worried about Karen's safety and well-being. Kirk explained to the police Karen's recent state of mind. She lost her husband a year ago to cancer and hasn't been handling it very well. Her father was recently diagnosed with terminal cancer and just yesterday was rushed to the hospital and is in critical condition. He told the police she was a recovering alcoholic and has been taking prescription drugs. He told the police that she made a desperate sounding text the day before at 4 a.m. to her close brother, and no one has heard back from her since. He told them that this was not like her at all. Both her cars were in the garage, and the house is locked, and no answer at the doors. 2 officers responded to the 911 call at the Grahams and greeted Kirk. With no immediate action to enter the house, instead they waited to retrieve a neighbor's ladder and climbed in the second floor bedroom, which was open. Officer Gray was the officer who climbed in through the bedroom window, failing to even look around enough to see that there was a bathroom door with the light on, fan going, and music playing. Instead, he said they didn't find her and locked up the house and left. After finding this out, I called Officer Gray and insisted that something be done to find my sister, and I was filing a missing persons report. I stressed how immediate the situation was getting as time was going by, and we were all believing something horrible was happening to Karen. At this point, Officer Gray took action to extensively search for Karen, involving other resources and other police departments. Having no success, Officer Gray explained to me that his shift was ending, but he would have an officer on the next shift go to her house and take a fresh look. That officer noticed an open second floor bathroom window with the light on and the music playing. For 6 hours, family, friend, and neighbor, they found my sister dead. They found my sister in there dead. For 6 hours, family, friends, and neighbors were frantic for Karen's well-being, only to find out that Officer Gray had failed to look just feet away from a shut door leading to the bathroom where my sister had always been.
At this time, I'd like to see if I could have a raise of hands from the board there, of all you that have read the full and complete file of this investigation. Have a raise of hands, everybody. For those that don't raise their hands, how can you come to any conclusions of facts when you haven't read the reports? I advise you, please read them thoroughly. There's a lot of discrepancies between one officer and other officers of what they said and didn't they do that day. For the ones that have their hands up, I hope you can conclude, as I do, that this was more serious than a momentary lapse of thoroughness, as Chief Boulder stated. I'd like to also take this time to read the second part of my complaint, which addresses Chief Boulder's actions after returning from vacation, finding out about things. I had numerous conversations with Detective Tim May, who was a detective on the scene, who was talking to me only after speaking with Gray all day. I spoke to Tim, detective, he called me. I only spoke to him that whole week. My dad was in the hospital. We were trying to make arrangements for my sister's funeral and possibly my dad's funeral. I had numerous conversations with Detective Tim May concerning the conduct of the police department and my interactions with Officer Gray on the day of the 911 call. I told Detective May that the family would be having a funeral for my sister and my father on the same day in town. Detective May suggested the police department could provide many special things in honor of a World War II hero, our dad. Detective May promised to have police officers posted at the doors of the funeral home on Friday, and police officers posted at the church Saturday on the day of the funeral. Detective May promised we would have a police escort from the funeral home to the church, and from the church to the cemetery. The day before the funeral processions took place, I received a voicemail from Chief Nick Bolter stating that he could not provide any police officers during the funeral or the burial. The same day, I received a phone call from the town employee stating the town had a proclamation in honor of my father and come down and pick it out. I would like to have the police department initiate an internal investigation into the actions of Officer Gray, leading to a reprimand and investigative training, is what was on my complaint.
Any other public audience? Hearing none. We have a presentation from Animal Control Officer Mark Budowitz on coyote.
Well, good evening. I know last night I spoke to you folks, a few weeks ago. You were aware of this before me. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, so anyway.
Because I'm the one that originally asked for this.
Well, like to speak about that is, I know you stated
Excuse
you
me,
did.
Jim, could you make a motion to change the agenda?
Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, I didn't do it now.
You know what we're gonna do, Mark? We're gonna move item 10 up, which is the consideration of the police candidate, and then we'll go
no
directly
problem,
to you.
yeah, by all means.
If that's okay, so I would make that motion.
Oh, I'll second that.
Here you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moved.
Item number 10?
Yep. So we'll go to 10, put that in front of 6.
So Lieutenant Sifo, excuse me, will give you a brief bio on our preferred candidate, Mr. Corey Thomas.
On behalf of Chief Bolter, I want to introduce you all to Corey Thomas. Corey Thomas comes to us from the city of New Britain. Corey grew up and attended high school in New Britain. He received his bachelor's degree from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, where he also played football for Northeastern University. Corey was a police officer, is still a police officer in the city of New Britain for the past 5.5 years or so. Prior to him being a police officer in Britain, he was a police officer in the city of New Haven for about 1.5 years. Some of his accomplishments is he's post-certified in arrest and control as an instructor, along with OC, baton, and handcuffing. He's a certified law enforcement active diffusion strategy and tactical options instructor. He's completed post-required method instructions course. He's attended the Use of Force Summit. He's a lead physical training for the recruits in New Britain Police Academy. He regularly takes part in training defensive tactics as an instructor throughout the state. He was awarded the Department Life-Saving Award in 2019. He currently participates in the New Britain's neighborhood zone meetings as part of the community. And Corey still actively coaches Top Warner football in the city of New Britain for several years. So, I'll introduce you to Corey Thomas.
Would you like to tell us why you'd like to become a Hartford Simsbury policeman?
Honestly, I've always come here mainly to be honest, because you guys are some of the greatest places to eat in the state. I recently been, I also used to work with Joe back there, Officer Hall. I've been talking to him a lot about like how I was feeling and things, and just as far as like as work goes, and he was like, I think you really feel good here, and I was like, and I'm skeptical, and I was like, you know, I'm a creature of habit. I don't like change much, so I started asking a lot more questions. Started coming here a little bit more often to look around, and I was like, you know what? And then I'm all about signs, and a position opened up, and I was like, hey, this is a sign. I put into a position. Since the first day I came here, for that, not even knowing I would even be at this point right now, I walked in here and everything just felt different. It felt different. It felt good. You know what I mean? I just felt like it felt like a family environment. I walked in, you know, everybody has each other's back. I haven't been greeted with anything less than a smile all the times that I've been here. Even with the citizens, when I go grab coffee outside, they don't know what I'm doing, but I'll just, you know, say how you doing, get my coffee and stuff like that. Everybody's nice, and I know Chief Bolter is all about community policing, and that's what I'm all about. You know, getting out of the car, meeting people, talking to people, chatting with everyone. If somebody doesn't know my name on the road, I don't like that. I want everybody to know who I am by first name. Call me Corey, call me Officer Thomas, call me whatever you need. And I feel like this is a place that just I can effectively do that and just add some value to the community here. And just instructor-wise, I like to bring that aspect to the department. I believe that education and teaching and training is paramount to like producing and just, you know, bringing up good officers, things of that nature. So I just want to be accepted and hopefully give you guys everything I got.
Thank you.
The life-saving award, what was that specifically for?
So actually, Officer Holt and I went to a call for a suicidal person. Knowing Britain, we go to these probably 50 times a day. So sometimes it, and I hate to use this word, it gets routine. So you go there, you're like, sometimes you have people that know to say the magic and things like that, and it's, so you're like, we go there, we're knocking on the door, we know the person's young, I believe it was she was a female, she was high school female, about 17. Usually it's like a fight with the parents, like you're making these, you're having all these thoughts, you're making these assumptions as you're going to the call. We're like, it's probably a fight with her parents, she's probably mad, something happened. So we get there, I remember we walk up the stairs, it's a third floor apartment, I believe. The door opened into a small hallway, and then, so there was a front door, small hallway, and another door, and to the right was the kitchen, and her whole entire family's in the kitchen, and everybody's screaming like she's in the bathroom, she's gonna kill herself, she's got a knife. And me and Officer Hall were talking to each other briefly, like, okay, she's in the bathroom door with the door closed. We can hear her crying, she's still alive, clear out, she had hurt herself seriously, she's still crying and breathing and everything. So we knock on the door, she refuses to open the door at first, and we're telling her, like, listen, like, we want you to be okay, so if you don't open the door, like, we're gonna come into the door. And so she opens the door, and to our surprise, because a lot of the times we go on these calls, and sometimes they are, like, someone's gonna kill themselves with a knife or something, and a lot of the times you get there and it's nothing like that. This time, she's in the bathroom with this gigantic butcher knife, and she has the knife to her throat. So Officer Halt and I, and she's got to be 2 feet from us. So like, she takes the knife and starts slashing. She can cut us easily. And in the hallway we're in to the bathroom has got to be, it's not very wide, maybe 3.5, 4 feet wide. So we both offset, and we drew our firearms. We're telling her to put it down. She's not listening. So we're talking to her. She's crying. We're trying to get her to drop the knife. She will not drop the knife. I noticed her breathing. Like, I noticed she's crying heavily, and she's also breathing with the knife to her throat. So I waited for a chance to her, a really heavy breath, and the knife came down. So I just reached in and just grabbed it. I grabbed her arm and the knife, and I yanked it out of her hand. Officer Hall secured the knife. I secured her, and we didn't have to shoot someone. In some cases, it may have gone that way.
Did you both receive the award?
No, I don't think so. This happened probably in 2000. This happened a few years ago,
Okay,
but they didn't actually recognize us for it until this past summer.
that's an amazing story. More importantly now, Pop Warner. My kids used to play in the grid, used to pick them up every time. Maybe we get you to go to Pop Warner. But there was this
Absolutely not.
Dokie.
You don't have to tell us what it is. Okay.
No, actually, I was interested in why you wanted to move to Simsbury from New Britain, but I think you addressed that.
Can I hear a motion?
You want us to do it tonight, Chief?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I feel it. So moved?
Second? All in favor of offering a job to Corey?
Aye.
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 All right, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Where you going?
Shake my hands, Corey. You're no longer James.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I did bring some cookies in the other room if you guys are interested.
Yeah,
There's cookies in there.
Cookies, any glazed
Christmas
donuts?
cookies. Yeah, no, they're in the table.
okay. Oh, very good.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I think we're back on track.
Yes, thank you. Officer Rudowitz.
Yes, okay, we'll get to talk about the coyotes. Right now, we're in the, well, let me backtrack. I realize we've had some complaints on coyotes, and we have a growing population, just like our bears. Basically have no natural predators here in this area, unlike other parts of the country where, the coyotes fall prey to wolves and the bigger species. Here we don't have that, so they're somewhat of they are the wolves I describe with this area. right now, we're in a trapping season for coyotes. I know there's been interest in, questions asked about trapping. It would be for land trapping. Right now, we would need 10 contiguous acres of land, could be town land, and it would be a foothold trap that would be on the surface. It would be staked, and, that we'd need the 10 acres. However, from February through November, we also can trap on less than 10 acres of land, whether it's a private owner, whether it's a couple parcels of land that neighbors get together. It would be with a special permit issued by the state DEP. They would come out and do an assessment, they would hire somebody it's called a NUCO, or Nuisance Wildlife Control Operator. Actually, I have that state commercial license. And I'm also a licensed trapper myself, both for coyotes and Ottawa. I would engage out here in town. So we can do that. After January, to do that, any trapping would have to be what's called subsurface or below grade. So you would have to set it somewhat in the dirt or in water, like in a marsh area. And I use the area where we had several complaints was that overlook area, Orchard, Park Road. There's a parcel of land there, a tract of land that where coyotes go. Now, there's a good parcel of woods, but there's also some nice wetlands. Somewhere like there would be out to them to set, like a foothold trap in the water subsurface. The reason they wanted subsurface without the 10 contiguous acres is because, first of all, a lot of times, and a good majority of the time, you usually trap a non-targeted species, another form of wildlife. Skunk, raccoon, I may not sound like that, but once again, you got something out there screaming, hooting, and hollering, it put attention. The other thing is we're gonna be concerned if, God forbid, somebody's 7-year-old stepped on that. Now, yes?
If I, because,
Sure.
these guys are probably.
And I'll provide you some written
presentation,
information and guidelines here.
but I've heard from a number of neighbors, that's why I brought it up to the
Yeah.
chief a couple of times, it was actually a couple of months ago. So over the last few months, and while the kids were still in school, and I live in the central school area, I've seen them myself, we've had some conversation about that. I had some neighbors, so if you go behind Henry James School, and you get down where the brook is, and then there's Michael Drive and so forth over there. People over there that we know have said they've seen them. I did send a picture into the chief, not 100% positive where that was, but there were 5 of them. And then I heard from some people over in the central school area that are afraid to let their dogs out. They feel that coyotes have been stalking their dogs. What I'm really worried about is kids walking to school. I went to central school, we didn't have coyotes back then, at least I never saw one until I was much older. That's what I'm worried about. Putting a trap out in central school area probably could get somebody that don't, and it could be a person. The kids are out hiking in the backwoods. I know there's a bunch of forts back there, my kids used to do it. So, first of all, how much of a problem is it? And what do we tell residents who are worried about their kids walking to school in the morning? Because they all walk to school in the central school area.
Yeah.
That's why people live there. Well, that's my concern.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That is a concern. Now, the fortunate thing I say with coyotes, now in your case, I know the coyotes, don't get me wrong, we've had coyotes attack people here in the state, we've had coyotes attack dogs that were on leashes, but it's, as far as being a major problem, we really, knock on wood, we haven't had anybody attacked. We've had dogs taken, we've had dogs attacked, not on leashes. However, as far as, they're pretty skittish of humans, they really are.
Wasn't skittish of me. I have an 85
No, I
pound lap,
understand.
and the guy down the street from me's got one of those Russian wolfhounds. That's a big dog. I
No,
wouldn't wanna
I'm
mess with
very
him.
familiar with it.
And he got circled by
Yeah.
2 coyotes
Yeah.
a couple of weeks after these ones
Keep
came
in
out.
mind,
Yeah.
that it's not an uncommon trait,
Yeah.
because right now, there's 2 reasons coyotes will go after. In mating season, to protect that territory, and that female,
Yeah.
mating season, and in breeding season, and post-breeding season when there's a litter. It's like any parent, you're gonna come out swinging to protect your young. As much as they're a nuisance, keep in mind, just like the bears, when they can be perceived as a nuisance, they don't realize they are. That's why we're seeing, they're up close and personal with us. Now, we can do trapping, however, I don't recommend doing that. First of all, it's a foothold trap. It's not the jaw trap, but it's a foothold trap, so you're gonna catch some. Now, God forbid we catch somebody's golden retriever in it, or a 7-year-old's foot. Now, would it break it? No, but it definitely, this, I can tell you right now, this type of trapping would be have severe negative public perception impact on the town of Simsbury and the Simsbury Police Department. To be honest with you, I recommend having, if you want further discussions with this, having a campaign or putting more information out, public information, public education. Once again, I'll say there's no absolutes. You're absolutely right. I mean, on anything, just like the bears, we have a big population of them. A lot of people love seeing them. Some people aren't very comfortable with them. I tell people don't minimize just because they lumber through your yard, just like a coyote. These are wild animals, hence the word wilds, hence the word highly unpredictable and dangerous. So I do agree with you there. I don't think the answer is trapping. I think it's more education. Now, that can be done in certain areas. It would minimize a certain number of coyotes. It may reduce some conflicts, but it's not going to overall remove the threat of a coyote population. You might remove a few. The other negative aspect of trapping, and I can tell you from being a licensed commercial trapper, which I don't really engage in, but I do have to possess all these legal commercial licenses, it's very expensive. There's a lot of work with it. It's not like setting up a have-a-heart trap. If Mr. Long calls and says, Mark, I got a woodchuck that's being nothing but a pain in the rear end over at my house. I can come over, set a trap, throw some cantaloupe in it, and then within a couple hours or the next morning, I've got my target, or whatever it may be. Coyotes, it's almost impossible to catch them and have a heart trap, so that's why I use the label. The other thing is, once they're in that leg bolt trap, the only alternative is euthanasia immediately right there. Euthanasia this way is basically a discharge of a fire at point blank range. So, I mean, there's a lot of negative to it, but, I mean, the trapping can occur in certain areas. I would just recommend it would have to be, very discreet, and I wouldn't make that a public. I wouldn't announce that out to the public. But I still would say education and more information and just, kind of safety awareness. I wish I could give you a more clear, definitive answer on that. But I think all you folks here realize you start trapping, and God forbid, and even if we catch coyotes, once again, just like our bears, a good portion of the population loves seeing them, but the other part want them hunted and removed. So, I mean, it's kind of a balance where, we've got a balance to everybody here. We want to make sure that, first and foremost, the people are safe. I agree with you. I tell people, once again, as much as these coyotes, don't minimize these bears. Some people are comfortable walking 3 feet from them in their deck. The average bear is 300 pounds. Think about it. A coyote, as much as there can be a pain, think about it, Mr. Fleming. A coyote comes after me, you, anybody here, you give him a kick in his head, plain English, I know you.
I'm bringing my T-ball bat with me.
Yeah, exactly. You
You
whack them with them, I mean, they're 45, 50 pound. Now, they are getting larger. It's been proven that some of these coyotes up here in the Northeast possess a small percentage of wolf DNA. So
He's
this
a
is why
good
we're
size.
seeing them.
He was big, he was tall.
We're seeing them 60, 80 pounds.
Wasn't mangy or anything.
No,
Looked
no,
good.
I mean, they're beautiful creatures,
Yeah.
but, no,
Who preys on them?
that area, well,
Wolves?
yeah, wolves, other canines would. You'll find that occurs, obviously,
But then you got
North America, Canada, Minnesota, up in the upper quadrant of the United States, the Midwest. You'll almost never see wolves and coyotes together. Just like right here, you will almost never see foxes and coyotes. Foxes, gray and red fox, which are two species that are here in Connecticut, indigenous to the state, also fall prey to the coyote population.
Do you get a lot of complaints about them? I mean,
Sure, we get a fair amount. Yeah, they're a growing species. The average litter is between 5 and 7 pups, keeping in mind that maybe half of them survive.
would it be worth talking to kids at school before they, certainly at the elementary schools? and
Sure,
everything.
absolutely.
I don't know, I mean, what's a kid gonna do if there's a coyote out there chasing them?
We've had them at Latimer Lane Elementary, and our principal and custodian go out and chase it away.
Right.
So I'm wondering if there's a resource that we could articulate to people, because it seems to be more popular in my neighborhood, and they're like the bears, where they're a celebrity and everyone wants to take a picture and put it on Facebook. Is there a resource that we could refer people to which would educate them on the dangers or ways to prevent coyotes, like don't leave your garbage out, bears will come to
Right.
your garbage. Is there something similar for
Well,
coyotes that
we do put,
educate?
and you know what, we have a good amount of information on our website, Simsbury Police Department on the animal control with coyotes. And, you know, I have no problem speaking to the kids or the teachers, you know, as far as, you know, what to do, what not to do. With a coyote, most of them, they're, you know, where a bear, you know, face it, a lot of times they'll just camp right out. You know, you go to a call, they're at the garbage, they're at the birdseeder, and I've got to discharge some, you know, noise rounds or beanbag, well, we can, I don't, but basically cracker shell rounds, just, you know, basically noise, cap gun, to get them going, it gets them moving. Coyotes usually are just pretty skittish, they're moving, and like in your case, they're scenting you, they might be following you.
I'd probably look tastier than him. That's probably what was going on. And he knew I couldn't run that fast.
Yeah, right, well, I'm sure you, if you're being chased by coyotes, I'm sure you'd be able to move. But, yeah, I mean, once again, I still maintain that education is probably our best bet. You know, an awareness, education, and being vigilant. Face it, we live in a community, in an area that's highly wooded, it's densely population, but, you know, other communities have different sets of problems. Here, fortunately, we don't have other problems maybe like other communities have. However, there is a big wildlife population. Which, matter of fact, for me, I think it's the beauty. It's one of the allures and the attractions of Simsbury. I find it awesome. You know, when you think of bears and you think of stuff, most people think of, people have to fly to Montana, Colorado to see a bear from 500 yards away with binoculars. Every individual at this panel could just step out in your backyard and with a glass of wine or a coffee and see a deer, a coyote, you know, a bear. Yeah, we've seen 2 or 3 moose.
I went to Alaska.
Right in my backyard,
Yeah,
eating an apple
you know,
from an
I mean,
apple tree.
it's-
And then he was located on, and then later on that day, I mean, I heard him on the radio, we got a moose down here on 44 at Avon. That's my moose.
For me,
He came from Bushy Hill all
it's
the
one of the
way.
features and benefits of the job, and one of the features and benefits of the town, I really do. Now, granted, these are wild animals and dangerous, but I think it's just amazing to be able to go to calls. For me, still, when I go to a call and there's a bear in somebody's yard, you know, I find that
I just
fascinating.
think that and I agree with all that, and I love looking at the animals. And we had a bobcat come through the yard the other day, it's a beautiful, beautiful animal. But if something happens, the attitudes are gonna change very, very quickly. And if there's anything, you know, you've suggested education, I think that's great. And if we can make an effort with the schools especially, I think that would be worth spending some time, Chief, at the schools. If the principal's interested in having them come in, or if you know somebody on the PTA, PTO.
I don't think our school really, they just go out and scream at them and it
Yeah.
goes away. So, I don't know, I think it would be interesting for the neighborhood people so that they're not going out taking pictures to raise to the level of something happening where a dog gets taken or something, so people realize how to address the situation.
Yeah. And in the vast majority of cases where dogs have been attacked or taken, it's been where folks have been, the dogs have been in the yard or unattended or away at the property line. Keep in mind, these animals are opportunistic predators, you know, so they lie in wait, and they will troll and they will flank in until that unsuspecting dog goes to the edge of that property line, and that's when they strike. And we've had them go after, listen, you've got a big dog, brush your wolf out. We've had them, not too long ago, was over on, was a Country Club Road, and the gentleman there has like a 80-ton Portuguese water dog. And same thing, because of the golf course right behind it, he was going after that. So, you know, it is wildlife. Could we remove some? Sure. But it's not gonna really solve, you know, in a scheme of things.
On the subject of the leg hold traps, were these the same kind of traps that I would have used as a kid going after muskrats?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it absolutely would be. It's called a Minnesota 550 trap. It's a padded trap.
Okay.
I know people say, oh, it don't hurt. Well, I can tell you right now, nobody wants to stick their finger in it. Now, you can, and you can adjust the tension, as you know, if you were a trapper. However, it's, once again, you know, you can catch coyotes, we have to euthanize them right away, the trapper. And God forbid, that's all you need is a guy coming out of the woods with carrying 2 coyotes, you know, taking pictures, that's all over Facebook. You know, it's, I could see it being a nightmare, or even worse, getting somebody's Australian Shepherd stuck in it, or some 7-year-old walking through the yard there.
Is it possible to, on the Lake Hole tracks, to possibly mark them
Mhm.
with signage that says stay back 10 feet in yellow maybe, on a stick, that, I don't assume they can read. That
Yeah.
we
Pretty
could,
smart.
Not English, though, probably not English. You read very little.
that would somehow alert people.
I guess we could, I guess that's an option, or at least put somewhere, some kind of signage in the area and make a public awareness. Okay, we've got some traps set back here, folks. You know, I'll go back to that Orchard Street, that little tract of land between that quadrant there. Yeah, sure, I
I'm
imagine we
thinking that
could.
in coordination
Sure.
with some program suggested at the grammar school level, making them aware of these signs, that they have to really stay back, could be very painful.
Look at Santa, I'm gonna go over and look at that, I didn't know that was there before.
When you trap, are they territorial? So if you had a problem in a certain area and you trap the coyotes out of that area, would that resolve the problem, or eventually would new coyotes?
You would have new ones, but they do stay, they have a tendency to stay in certain areas. So we could remove half a dozen. Keep in mind, it's an expensive venture too, for a trapper. It's averaging about $250, $300 a coyote. There's a lot of work involved. You have to check it, you know, if you were a trapper, we legally have to check these every day. And the reason I wouldn't want to engage in that, for this, it would just be a complete nightmare for the town. Oh my God, your animal control's killing these things, we're trapping them. And it would be, you know, and I think there's other ways of going. But that's an option, and we can definitely explore that. I definitely can get people on board that would be willing to do that with the town, so.
Any other questions?
Good, thank you for coming back.
No,
I
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Listen, I'll be back for the bear meeting. Keep in mind, now, here, before I leave you folks, I don't want to say gentlemen, you folks. I was with Rick Jacobson from the state DEP about 3 weeks ago at a meeting here at the state capitol. I'll leave this with you. Here's some guidelines, what they use is for when a coyote is going to be euthanized. Category 1 is what you're approaching people or taking a dog, not under the owner's control, really wouldn't warrant it. But there are certain scenarios where it would rise to the level of euthanasia. So if you want, I can leave you some
That'd be
copies.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get copies circulated, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Chief,
I
you
know-
have a copy of this? You do now, Chief.
thank you.
All right,
I know Rick from all the
Oh, of course.
hearings that the public.
Yeah,
at
right,
the state
right,
capitol.
right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
folks.
Thank you.
Yes, have a good evening.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Hey, Chief, have a good night, sir. Lieutenant, you ready?
I'm happy to see those copies.
Emily, good night, folks. Joe.
Item 7, the citizens' complaint, potential action on discussion, Connecticut. I'll ask the same question that Mrs. Snedeker asked. Has everyone gone into the chief's office and read through the report?
Yes.
And just for the record, what was made available to us, it was a very thick report. We did have access to other information, such as the autopsy report that we got to go through. I know I went through it. You know, I know the area down there where your sister lives, Patty. And those are all Bouffard houses down there. My dad lived up in a Bouffard house as well. So I mean, it looked to me as though the police officers went in, he missed the bathroom when he went in. I was happy because I had just heard from the newspaper reports what they thought had happened. When I read the full report, I realized that they did take the time to go down to Avon. They were trying to track the phone. I can't figure out why, they were getting the pings down in Avon, and I was glad to see that they took the time to talk to the cell phone company and eventually got them back up into your sister's neighborhood. It's a tragedy. You had a lot going on then, and I told you, I know your dad, I've known him almost my entire life, so I know there was a lot going on. And I thought the actions that the chief took to talk to the officers that were involved was important. It seemed to me that you were asking for an investigation, some kind of counseling, or some kind of training. I think those three options have been taken care of by the department, but if you feel there's further things that the police commission should consider, I would like to hear them. I know we're not in public audience right now, but Mr. Chairman, if Patty wanted to suggest additional things, I'd be more than willing to listen if that's okay with the rest of the members.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have the commissioners make their comments first and at the end.
Okay.
There may be something that will come up that will answer some potential questions you have.
You want to proceed right down the road?
Yeah.
Okay. I tried to look over the matter through the eyes of someone who was here when we first adopted in 2015, the formal citizen complaint procedure that we have now. And we say that we try to look at it through the eyes of the complainant. And I tried to do that. And I also read the entire file. My conclusion was I do not feel the complaint needs further investigation. But let me follow up on that a little bit. The situation is truly a tragic one, compounded, in my opinion, by at least three factors or mistakes which may or may not have had any effect or might have had an effect on the outcome, who knows. One is the timeliness in the initial reporting. Secondly, there's a difficulty in getting access, and two, an unfamiliarity with the layout of the premises. Obviously, that door was missed. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly here, the misinterpretation of technical data regarding the pinging of the telephone, by the experts who do that sort of thing. You were right. We had people knocking on doors in Avon because they got sent there. I feel there was an ample showing of due diligence on behalf of all the Simsbury police officers involved. They worked hard to make this a good situation, which failed. I don't feel that the complaint, however, reached the threshold provided for either in our policy or that provided for by the Police Officer Standards Training Council under Public Act 14166, which call for investigations involving citizen complaints of police officer misconduct or malfeasance, neither of which were present here. As I said at the outset, I feel this complaint does not need further investigation.
Karen?
I'll start by saying I knew Karen. Karen and I worked together at command. We worked on the same helicopter program. While I was with the ambulance, I had the duty to transport her one night while she was undergoing cancer treatment to the hospital along with her husband Rick. Last time we spoke was via LinkedIn, and I apologized to her for missing Rick's funeral because I was traveling. I never did get a response to that. I've known Officer Gray for many years through the ambulance. He's always been caring and compassionate. He was always willing to assist. And he is a highly trained officer, competent, doesn't get tunnel vision. He understands the situation. And as others have spoken, this death is a tragedy. And there's so many questions that will never get resolved. I believe that Officer Gray climbed the ladder at his own personal risk of injury because he is passionate and caring.
And he's old.
He could have called the fire department because there wasn't any obvious signs of trouble on the outside. Everything was in order, and there wasn't any known or verifiable threat. And I cannot surmise why the bathroom door was not opened or why the music and light were not noticed by the original responders to that. The review of the case internally was appropriate. Both Officer Gray and Sergeant Thibault are very experienced law officers. The additional investigative training that you requested occurred. The lessons learned from this case are forever etched in the minds of Officer Gray and Sergeant Thibault. You don't forget this. It is my conclusion there is no reason for a reprimand or any further independent investigation. That's all I have, Chairman.
Jen, do you have any comments?
I'd like to offer my condolences on your loss. I believe it was a very tragic situation and very unfortunate. Having reviewed the file, I too agree with my fellow commissioners that the officers did do a thorough investigation. Whatever the reason for missing the music or the light, it's still a tragedy and it's still a very sad situation. I do believe that the counseling offered by the chief adequately addresses your requests for further education for the officers, and do not believe that additional counseling at this time needs to be made. But I too would like to hear what your additional suggestions are.
I also read the report. It seemed to me that there were some disadvantages. One, that on the telephone thing, we didn't have the number until probably noon. And when they started pinging it, it kept coming up in Avon. And I don't know what that's Verizon's thing. And it wasn't until my understanding that our dispatchers became more insistent that we finally got the report that pinpointed it closer to your sister's house. I think it was very unfortunate what happened. My understanding that is there's been additional training now with the police force that when someone searches the house, typically in this instance, Gray did the second floor, the sergeant did the first floor and the basement. And that now one officer will do the house and then another officer will do the house. So everybody, so two people get to look at the same area at the same time.
When does that come to change?
That changed as a result of your sister's death.
We were never informed of anything.
So there has been some changes in the way that the department operates as a result of your sister's unfortunate death. I'm good friends with the O'Neills on Meadowbrook.
Right.
And I remember seeing your sister over the years. And again, I'm very sorry for her loss and your loss of her sister. But from what I could tell from the organization, that we could have done a better job by using different search methods, but, and we will in the future. I'm sorry. If you have anything further to say, we'd be happy to listen.
Well, I do have a couple of things. There are a lot of contradicting things, statements. Officer said, we noted, Officer Gray included in his report, that we noticed, he said, we noticed there was no music, that the room was dark, the window open, and we noticed there was no music. Why would you go out of your way to say something like that in a report? He also said in his report, there was no keys on the kitchen counter, there was no keys or purse in the house. And clearly the next set of officers said the keys were noticeably on the counter. They arrived at the house and they heard music from within. They went around the back and they saw a light on, a bathroom window open, a light on, music coming from it. These are all, seeing and hearing are one of the things that we ask of our officers that are out there, helping us, that they're 100%, in what they're doing. And I felt like he was 50% that day, showing up to a 911 call with all the distress signals there and actually not entering the house right away, noticing to, because she could be in there. Like we said, committing suicide, or halfway through it, and waiting to retrieve a ladder, letting a neighbor who is this guy, come and look around the house. There's discrepancies about who searched the house. He said he searched the upstairs, he went downstairs, he had Sergeant Thibault search the basement, while he's checked the first floor. Read it again, that's what he says, and things have changed around. He also told my husband when he went in, you know, my husband and the neighbor did come in the house. He said they exited the house and talked to Kurt and John, the neighbor.
Right.
They told them to come into the house, and he said, did you search the basement? Patty says there's a lot of rooms down there, storage things and everything. No, they all went down the basement and searched the basement. So it wasn't nobody searched, they all went down. On a crime scene, possibly, of someone being dead in the basement, they all went down and searched the basement. There's a lot of discrepancies. The time frame where she died. The coroner, the examiner who showed up out on the scene, showed up, Karen was, the call was made at 9:30. The coroner, when they got there and wanted to say the approximate time of death, that was she arrived at 5:17 and left at 5:40 with her analysis that Karen was dead that there was no way they could say the approximate time of her death. They would only be going by the records that they had seen, which was the phone call. No, she didn't answer her phone all day Saturday. So we put it at approximately 12 to 24 hours. From that 5 o'clock time where she showed up and left at 5:15, she showed up and left at 5:40, she said 12 to 24 hours. She had the approximate time of death. If you put that 12 hours from 5 to 5:30, that's 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning Sunday morning, not Saturday morning. Her death certificate says Saturday morning. If you put it 24 hours, that's Saturday morning at 5 o'clock at night. Nowhere near the time Detective May said she killed herself between 6 and 8 and 7:30. Your brother called at 8. She, turned the alarm off from her phone around 6:15, 6:40 was the last time she used her phone on Saturday morning. That doesn't even coincide with the coroner. We're not talking about 12 or 24 hours. We're talking about 36 hours according to the police. There's all these different discrepancies. And I have all this paperwork done from police officers, Avon Police, fire departments, everybody involved. We called 911. He should have entered the house and checked and see. She could have been still alive. As far as I'm concerned, that 12 hours is an approximate time. And that's set at 5 o'clock on Sunday to 5:15 she arrived. 5:17 she left at 5:40, pronounced her dead. She'd been dead, she can't say exactly, 12 to 24 hours. That's pretty good, leaving that officer with a 3-hour time span where he couldn't have found her alive on his report. She could have been alive. Could she have been alive? There's no real saying that she was or wasn't. They want me to prove that she was alive. When they talked to a neighbor, one of her neighbors in the report says, yeah, I saw Karen, I saw her, I didn't see her Sunday, I think I saw her Saturday, or maybe it was Friday. Saturday, maybe Friday. There's another thing. Maybe she saw her Saturday. Maybe they did see her Saturday. The police said that she was dead Saturday morning, early, by 7. We don't have a time frame because the officer came in at 9:30 and didn't find my sister. I got all this extra paperwork because he went through with me on the phone. It was actually 6 to 8 hours before I found out my sister was dead. And I went all day long talking to Officer Gray about what was going on. When I first called him, he was writing a report and finishing up on her. What are you doing? My sister is missing. There's no reason why she shouldn't be answering her phone. We've got a 96-year-old father that's, been terminal cancer diagnosed since this past February. We all are by our phones. No one leaves town or does things without one of us family members knowing what we're doing. We're here. So my sister and I are the only ones my dad has to watch over at 96 while he's in his home, with his illness. And there's just too many questions when I talk to Chief Bowler for the first time, then I'm out here, I said, you know, I'm here and want to find out, you know, what do you feel about your officers that day? He says, well, would it have changed, would the outcome have changed, would the circumstances have changed the outcome? How cold, for the first thing coming from your chief of police, that he said to me, he said, I'm sorry, you know? Detective May said a lot nicer things than me. He apologized for the conduct of his officers before he arrived on the scene. He apologized, he says, you know, and I said, listen, I got my father still in there, you know, we'll talk later, you know, and he wanted to investigate still and make sure this was a suicide and not a murder and everything, time span. Would somebody come back and put her body in the house? That's what I was going through. I said, you better check that neighbor. Why did he come on the scene so quickly? You know, she's a widow over there. He's across the street. You know, there's all these things I went through. When I found out, you know, she did, I never heard back from Officer Gray at all. He never called my family. The chief never called my family to apologize for that day, of the conduct of his officers that day, or Gary Gray calling me. I know Officer Gray too from town. But, you know, to put a family through such distress, knowing that their father's hanging on for his life by his bedside. You know why he couldn't get hold of me? My phone was going dead. I had no battery, no charger in the hospital. Trying to find my sister, calling everybody, 6 siblings, calling them, calling her office, anybody and everybody on a Sunday to find out where was Karen dating anybody, who she's seen, who did she leave Friday with, you know? All this on a Sunday after Gray had not found my sister in an obvious place. The most obvious place for someone committing suicide is in the master bedroom bathroom. Come on, that's an investigation that everybody should be aware of, you know? Come downstairs, Sergeant Thiebaud, did you check upstairs in the bathrooms? Were all the bathrooms checked thoroughly? That's where people commit suicides, are in bathrooms, you know? Check upstairs. I'm glad that that you double check, but a sergeant, I would think, would always double check. You know, 2 people should be checking the houses, and not to go down and check the basement thoroughly. There's just too much in here that just doesn't feel.
Doesn't quite jive. I mean, I was there. Officer
Did you
Gray
search
went.
the house?
Huh?
Did you search the house at all?
As a matter of fact, I did.
Yep.
So you didn't find her either?
No, I mean, you went and searched the basement.
No, here's the deal. Officer Gray went up the ladder, he went in through the window, okay? Now,
2 minutes.
he was up there for like 3 or 4 minutes, and he called down to Sergeant Thiebaud, or whatever his name is, and he went in.
Through the window?
Huh?
Through the window?
No, he came outside.
No, he came outside, and
So he
then,
came down
and
the
then the other officer went and searched the first floor. And I said, and then about 5 minutes later, he said, you know, they said, you guys can come in here if you want. And so we had, me and the next door neighbor, we walked in, and, you know, we're sitting there in Karen's kitchen, and I asked, I said, can we just go downstairs, because I know that downstairs there's a lot of nooks and crannies and cubby holes and this, that, and the thing. You know, let's just, you know, humor me, and let's go down and take a look. So all 4 of us went down, the 2 new police officers, myself, and the next door neighbor. Now, the other thing that really kind of bothers me is that at 3 o'clock, when the second officer went to the house, it was playing, and he immediately heard the radio upstairs. Pardon me?
Music, yeah.
Yeah, the music. The neighbor and I, we had walked around behind the house, just just canvassing the property, just for yahas while they were, you know, a couple minutes while they were there. We also heard the radio upstairs. So here's a guy that goes up through to the second floor. An officer goes through the second floor into the room, maybe not 5 feet away from where the music is coming from. And he didn't say anything. It didn't arouse his suspicions. It didn't arouse his curiosity as to what was it going on in there. Or he didn't hear it. I don't know. That's something that I think we would like to know.
Chief,
Or
do
where
we
was
know-
he then? Or where was,
Chief,
you know, where was
Hey,
he?
one second. Do we know if what kind of a radio it was?
It was a cell phone.
Was
She had
the
this cell phone plugged in the bathroom, listening to music. With
Could
the
it have been on
momentum's
some
all
kind
set
of-
up on the
Could it
sink.
have been on some kind of a timer?
It was plugged in. The officers
Plugged
that
in.
came the second time explicitly,
I know,
Said
I
right
read
away
that
they
in
heard
it too.
music.
I read that in the report.
right away, they explicitly said that the phone was plugged in. And these are officers explicitly saying these things and saying they clearly saw the keys on the counter. They clearly heard the music. They clearly saw that. You know, Detective May clearly told me his officers made a mistake that day. And he said, there will be an investigation, something will be done into this. And then I find out nothing was done. I mean, nothing was done. Nothing was done right away. And this is why I made this complaint, you know? I came out, I found out what was going on down here. I mean, with all the things that our family has gone through, you know, and even coming down to this, our proceedings with the funeral and having everything canceled the last minute. My father's a World War II vet, a World War II hero. He died on,
Flag Day. Oh, no, he died on the 7th.
he died on the 6th.
Oh, yeah, that was the invasion of Normandy on December 6th, or June 6th. And he died on Flag Day.
He died on June 6th.
Right, and he buried on the 14th. Excuse me.
And I just said it all seemed apropos that the Lord took him on June 6th. He was having his burial and, you know, Detective May was working the wheels down here. And he said, you gotta get information about your father, we want information. When we find out about all the clubs and everything he's done in the town and how many years he's been here, you know, we'll do something special for your father. We'll make this special for him, you know? And we'll go out of our way. And he came back, he called me up, you know, this is what we can do. But go down and give him some more information, and then all the doors can open up. Because Flag Day's Friday, we could leave the flags up. Who knows? I mean, the fire department, who knows, you know? But right now, this is what we have. And they told me what we have. My other family members are trying to get a flyover. The President Trump's birthday was on Friday. Something maybe, he's a Flag Day, Father's process. All of us are trying all these things. And then Thursday, I get this call from the chief, out of town. No, can't do this. He's left a message. Town has some extra traffic in. We're not able to lend our officers off for the funeral proceedings or anything like that.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your comments. The question would be whether we want to have a further investigation. Does anyone like to make an order at all? A motion that we have a further investigation, or do you feel that the investigation is adequate?
I feel the investigation was adequate, and the training was adequate.
Under the circumstances, I'm sorry, that's the best we can do.
Well, I'm sorry that the police department didn't go out of their way to apologize to me in person. I think, you know, a personal apology from Officer Gray should have been at hand, and Sergeant Beagle for missing the boat that day, if you want to put it so easily in the room, so that we don't hurt anybody's feelings. You know, of an officer who's been here 20 years, but sometimes it's time to go. If our eyes are going and our ears are going, and our sense of, you know, duty has slipped away, you know, and retraining isn't gonna help, you know, maybe.
Sorry, that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
Is there any old business?
No.
The chairman's report, the chairman does not have a report. The chief, you have a report.
Yes. Lieutenant Sippo and the PFC got attended a career conference in Kentucky. They both received a few days of crew training, and Lieutenant Sippo has officially taken the position of accreditation manager for the department. Included in your packet is some updated budget information toward the end there. There are several options to consider for next year's fiscal budget. And there's a cover sheet to go with that. And there's also, we now have a list of the dates for the budget process. So I filled those in on the top of that sheet as well. As far as personnel, Connor Arnold is doing well in field training. He's expected to complete his training around February of this year. Again, doing very well. We still have 2 officers out on non-work-related injuries. One is hoping to be back by late December, and the second one we don't know yet. Human Resources is working with both of those officers.
If any of them reach the 6 months,
One is approaching that right now. Jim and Pauline Salter made a donation of $100 to the police department, and Lois and Dina Martinelli donated $50 to the Heroes and Talents program. We do have to pick a date, or the dates for the 2020 calendar. I sent that around as well, and there should be a copy in your packet.
Do we need to approve those, Chief?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to do that now, the meeting schedule?
yeah, there was an email that you sent that you changed the date, was it December?
It was December, yes. It was pointed out to me that the December date was the wrong day on there, so I corrected it.
Okay, so the one we have on our.
Is correct.
And that's December 7th,
Yes, it
which
is.
is Pearl Harbor Day.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this meeting for, or this list of meetings for next year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You know that there are certain times when some of us can't make it.
Yes.
But now that we have 5 people, isn't this the problem? Okay, did 10 already?
But Chief, do we need to do something on the budget tonight in order for you to make the submission deadlines or?
Well, I think that's up to the commission. January 3rd is when I have to submit a preliminary to the finance director.
So if we don't approve this tonight, then it would either go forward without a recommendation, or we'd have to have another meeting?
It would, yeah, we would go forward without a recommendation, just to the finance director at that point. And then in February, there are meetings set up with the town manager where we take a look at.
Because I feel very strongly on this budget, especially when I look at our personnel numbers. We have pushed over and over and over again for additional police officers. We are below strength in Connecticut. We have asked for additional officers in the past. It has not happened. So I want to make sure at some point, the police commission takes a vote and makes it clear to the approving authorities, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, where the police commission is coming from on this. So if you're comfortable with this going forward to the Board of Finance or the Finance Director for a review, and then we take a vote in January, I'm okay with that. I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I think we all feel very strongly on this. We've been around and around and around, and I want them to understand where the police commission is coming from on this.
Included in that packet is the same sort of chart that you have seen now for a couple of years, as far as the national average, the state average, the region average, and then our comparable town average. So we're currently at 38 sworn officers. To get to the comparable towns, you would have to go up to 44. It's not officers, it's sworn members. So that's a jump of 6 officers. What I gave in here for options, several different variations of options. Starting off with option number 2 is the addition of 4 sworn officers and a civilian. And what we would do is...
Where are we now?
I'm sorry, it's option number 2.
So it's after this,
It is after that.
and we're on these.
It says on the upper right-hand corner the different option numbers.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted, let's point out option number 2 as an example. This one is the addition of 4 sworn officers and a civilian officer, a civilian member, and we would use one of the sworn officers to go back to patrol. So then we'd be adding members to our patrol division.
What does this do with command staff?
So this has the deputy chief in there,
Okay.
which we discussed earlier this calendar year. And then there's an additional now, a professional standards lieutenant. So we have, some significant growth in town, some significant responsibilities, additions, all sorts of stuff, and things are constantly changing. I'll give you one example. Anytime we use force, we're calling out somebody to investigate that force. It may be as simple as somebody just resisting arrest and the officer and the person rolling around, but we're doing a use of force investigation on that, so we can document everything. We need a lieutenant in charge overseeing what I'm gonna call professional standards. And that involves training, community service, traffic enforcement, animal control. Right now, we have 2 lieutenants, and they have a significant amount of work to do. And what we are seeing, and we have seen for quite some time now, is there's just not enough time, there's not enough resources for them to focus on the things that need to be focused on. And I'll just give you an example where the patrol commander is not able to come in and see what's happened over the last 8 hours, the last 16 hours, because he's working on projects, he's working on purchasing, he's working on other things, or working on something that has been brought to his attention, a complaint, whatever it may be, as opposed to coming in and looking at what's happened in the last 8, 16, or 24 hours, and really focus on patrol, which is a significant portion of what the police department does. So, the lieutenant in charge of patrol will be able to focus on patrol and dispatch. The investigative and supportive services lieutenant would be able to focus on the detective division, records, and the detective division includes the school resource officers. And then the professional standards would work on making sure that our policies and procedures are constantly looked at, up to date, up to CLIA standards, up to state standards. We would try to get our traffic enforcement officer back. We haven't had a traffic enforcement officer now since 2017. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. And I believe that option number 2 on here will get us much closer to where.
Well, Chief, which one are you looking at? Would you,
What the numbers, what numbers are you putting in with this?
so what you're just describing, if we went with option 2,
Yes,
option 2 would be the largest number of police officers, we have the 3 officers, it's the largest dollar amount, as I can see,
it is.
incidentally.
It is.
And my feeling is if you're gonna go to the director of finance, you ought to go in with option 2, right? Because that's what we know we really need. Right? What do you think?
Yeah,
Chief, I agree with that assessment.
we've done this every year for,
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.